Hi everyone, and welcome to our video tutorial for this cherry necktie that you can see Melba modelling here. So we hope you enjoy it. Please like, share and subscribe, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so to make this cherry necktie, you'll need yarn in two colours. I'm going with classic red and this bright green. The bright green I'm going to double strand, and the cherry red I'm using just a single strand. Obviously the green will be the stem, the leaves and the necktie, and then the red will be the cherry balls. These are both wool acrylic blends, and yeah. That's about all I need to say there. This is a 1 to 2 weight, and that's why I'm double stranding it. This one here is a 2 to 3 weight, so I'm just going to use a single strand. You'll need at least one crochet hook, but I'm going to use two. I'm going to use a 2.5mm for my cherry balls, and then I'm using a 3mm for the others, so the leaves, the stem and the necktie. You'll need some scissors to snip your yarn, a darning needle with a relatively sharp point to weave in your ends, a stitch marker or something else to mark your stitches will be likely helpful making the cherry balls. We'll be working in the round, and something to stuff your cherry balls. So I'm using just some cotton wool, but whatever you've got to stuff, some yarn scraps, some stuffing, toy stuffing, anything like that will work well. And an optional tape measure to take a measurement of your cat's neck circumference. You don't need an exact measurement for this pattern. I'll include in the description box below a guide to standard cat neck sizes, and you can just work from there and accommodate your necktie accordingly. So it doesn't have to be an exact measurement. You can just work with a range for this pattern. Okay, so to make this cherry necktie, we'll start with the cherry balls, and these are just little amigurumi balls. So you'll need to know how to make a magic ring and single crochet decrease, and I'll show you how I do that for these amigurumi projects. And then there's just some simple sewing techniques after you've stuffed the balls. For the leaves, you'll need to know how to slip knot onto your hook, how to make a chain, how to slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet and triple crochet. And then for the stem and the necktie, we're just using a chain stitch. And you've got the option to make little mini tassels to attach to the end. And I've just made these using some scraps of my green, so using up the scraps that I've cut off the other parts of the project. But you know, I can show you how to make some little mini tassels as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It is definitely beginner friendly, and I just love this one. It's so simple, but it's potentially one of the cutest patterns I've made. I just adore it. It looks so cute on Melba. It's like a little cherry bow tie. So I hope you enjoy it too, and let's get started. Okay, so I'm starting off with my 2.5mm crochet hook and my red yarn to make the make the cherry balls. So we're going to make a magic ring. So you make your magic ring how you make it. This is how I do mine. But there's a few different ways to do it, so you do it your way. And if you need to brush up on any of these techniques before you get started, then please do. I use US terminology, so apologies to my British friends out there. So from here, once you've made your magic ring, chain 1 to give you just a little bit of height. It will not count as a stitch. And then we're going to place 6 single crochets into the ring. That's 2 and 3, 4, 5, oops, 5, let's start that one again, that's 4 and 5, and one more, 6. Okay, so we've got our 6 single crochets in the ring, and then we're just going to pull on that tail end and close up the ring. So just pull it firmly but don't break your yarn. And then you can close it again as we move around. So you may need to just keep closing it a couple of times. Now, here's where you might find your stitch marker useful. So what I recommend that you do is whatever you've got, a hairpin or a stitch marker or a piece of yarn, just mark that last stitch, that 6th stitch. And if you need to count your stitches, and I advise that you do as you move on, count from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You'll just find it easier to count from this end. Okay, so round 2, so that's round 1. Round 2, we're going to place 2 single crochets in each of those stitches for a total of 12 stitches. Okay, so you go ahead, you place your 2 single crochets in each of your stitches, and I'm going to do the same. I'll finish off this off camera, and we'll count that we've got a total of 12 stitches when we get to the end, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so I'm at my stitch marker. Just remove that and place my last 2 stitches into that last stitch. Mark that last stitch. And just double check that you've got your 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so from here, rounds 3, 4, and 5, we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch. Okay, so as you can see, we're just working in a spiral. We're not slip stitching to join, if you're familiar with that method. We're just working in a spiral, and these next 3 rounds, we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch up to the stitch marker, and we're going to reach the stitch marker 3 times, marking at each round the last stitch, and then moving on to finish 3 rounds. Okay, so as you move around, you might need to just pop out your work so it's forming a ball. So you go ahead, I'm going to finish off my 3 rounds off camera. So 1 single crochet in each stitch, and I'll meet you once I've done that. Okay, I'm at the end of my 3rd round here, round 5. So I'll just mark that final stitch. So this is what you've got here, like a little basket. Now what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to stuff my tail down in there, just to get that out of the way. I'll just make sure that my ring is closed enough at the bottom. Let's just pull that a little bit tighter. Yep, that's better. I'll just stuff my tail in there, and then we're going to start to decrease. So we've got 1 row of decrease here. Well, really 2 rows, but one more row with the hook. So I'm going to show you how to decrease here using, it's an amigurumi method, and it just helps to keep the decreases less visible. So locate that next stitch, your first stitch, and you're going to just pick up that the front loop, okay, of your stitch. Hopefully you can see that there. I've just picked up the front loop. And then you're going to insert your hook in the next stitch in just the front loop. And then you're going to finish your single crochet there. So you're going to pull your yarn through both of those loops and then finish your single crochet. Okay? And then you'll just do that all the way around. So you're going to do that 6 times. And it's very hot in Marseille here today, and so I've got kind of sweaty hands, and it's hard doing this fine work with sweaty hands, so I apologise. Okay, so you're going to work those decreases all the way around. So I'm going to finish that off camera once again, doing those decreases. So you'll end up with 6 of those little decreases all the way around. So I'm going to finish that off that round, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, I'm just up to my last decrease here. And So that's the last one here. And that's the last round we're going to do with our hook. So you can just kind of pull out that loop, and we're going to stuff our little cherry now. So take your stuffing, and you'll use your hook or sort of the end of your needle, or so I just use the end of my hook, and I just stuff the stuffing into the cherry. So you want to stuff so it's nice and plump and juicy cherry, but you don't want to overstuff. Okay, so you can see the stuffing through the. So if you overstuff, it'll stretch the stitches, and you'll see the stuffing through the sides. Maybe just one little bit more. Stuff that in there. So just move the end of your hook around and just get it down the sides. And just make sure that your cherry is stuffed how you want it to look. And then we're going to finish off using our needle. Okay, so you can just pull out a length. You don't need a lot, but just enough so that you can sew around this end. So I'm just going to snip off that end, pull that tight, and then I'm going to thread my needle with this opposite end. And I'm going to do the same as what I did in that last round, but using the darning needle. So we're just going to pick up those front loops of each stitch, and you might just do 2 at a time or 2 or 3 at a time. You're just going to draw them together. 1, 2. And you'll just close the top of your cherry. And then once that's closed, you can just make a little knot just to secure it. So I just thread through and thread my needle through that loop, so it creates a little knot, and then we're just going to weave in the rest of this tail end. Okay, so you can just, it doesn't need to be super secure, so what I tend to just do is push it right down to the bottom and through the bottom, and then I just snip off the excess there. Okay, and that's my first ball done. And you can just kind of, shape it around, make sure it's nice and plump. And if you've got any pieces of stuffing sticking out, you can just stick those back in. And then, of course, you're going to make a second one. So I'll meet you once I've made my second cherry ball, and then we'll move on to making the leaves and the neckties, or the necktie and the stems. Okay, so see you soon. Okay, so I've got my 2 little cherry balls made there. And we're going to move on to making so we're going to make this leaf section, and then we're going to make 2 chains. One will end up being the center of the leaves here and the stems, and then the second one will be the necktie. Okay, so I'm double stranding my green as I said at the beginning, and you'll make a slip knot onto your hook. And once again, I'm using my 3mm crochet hook for these parts of the necktie. Okay, so you're going to chain 18 here. So we're making the leaves to start with. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18. Okay, so we're making both of the leaves together. So in that second chain from your hook, you're going to place a slip stitch. So in that, so you've got your V's on your chain, so you're just placing it in the top V, and then eventually we're going to work, so we'll work down one side of the chain and then work up the other side. So just use the top part of that V to slip stitch into, and then the next stitch a single crochet, the next stitch a half double crochet, the next stitch a double crochet, the next stitch a triple crochet, so yarn over twice, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then we'll just repeat that in reverse. So double crochet, half double crochet, single crochet, and slip stitch. And then we're doing the same again, so we're just repeating that whole thing. So this is one half of the first leaf, so we're going to repeat that again. So single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, triple crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, and in these last two stitches a single, or chains, a single crochet, and then finally a slip stitch. Okay, so we've got our top half of our leaves, and now we're just going to turn our chain around and work down the other side of the chain, doing exactly the same thing. So the first, in that first chain, the other loop, we will slip stitch, the next single crochet. So just mirror exactly what you've done on that first side along this bottom side. Okay, so the single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, triple crochet, and then mirror in reverse, and then do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to finish that off camera, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so I'm nearly down the other side, so I've got a single crochet left here, and my last is a slip stitch. So work that in there. It can be a little bit tricky to get in there right at the end. And slip stitch, and then we'll just yarn over and pull through, leaving enough to weave in. So there's our little set of 2 leaves. Now we'll weave in those tail ends before we move on. So I've got a double strand, so I'll weave in both of those strands together. That needle, and you'll just weave your tail end into the back here. So I'm kind of assuming that you know how to do this, so I'll just weave that through stitches. So you just want to be careful that you don't pull tightly to misshape your work, and I'll just work down these stitches here through the center. So just change directions a couple of times when you're weaving in your ends, and I'll just work back. And I'll snip off that excess. And then I'm going to weave in the other tail end, and I'll come back and we'll move on to the stems. Okay, so there I've got my little leaves. So let's just put that aside for a moment. And then we're going to create the stems. So that's these pieces here. So it's the stems plus it's a little tie that we can tie these leaves together in the center here. So you'll go ahead and it'll depend on how long you want your stems to be, how much hang you want on your cherries. So you can make it shorter or longer, depending on what you prefer. So I'm just making a slip knot onto my hook there, and I'm just going to create a chain. Now leave perhaps a little bit of extra tail than you normally would, because we're going to use that to sew on the stems onto the cherry balls. Okay, so just leave a little bit extra. You shouldn't need much extra, but just a little bit of extra tail there. So you're going to just create a chain. 3, 4. Now last time I chained, let's see, I think I chained about 26 or so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think it was about 25 or 26, but that's just an arbitrary number. You can you can chain as many or as few as you like. I might make my hang a little bit less this time for this one. So I might chain around sort of the 20-22 mark. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and you do the same according to how you want these to hang, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so I've got 20 there. Let's just try. I'll just do 21. So what you can do is you can just test it before you tie off. So just test. So you'll be wrapping it around and making a little knot, just a simple knot, and you can make it a double knot eventually if you want to. And then you can just see how that leaves your cherries to hang. And actually that's good for me. I'm going to just make it a little bit shorter. So I've done 21 there, 21 chains. With, and it'll depend on your yarn and your hook size, of course, as well. So you might not have exactly the same number of chains as me. Let's just add 1 for good measure. So that's 22. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through. And we'll tie this off, leaving, once again, just a little bit of extra tail there. So we can sew on our cherries. So you can sew them on before or after you tie this little knot. I'm going to tie it first, just because that's slightly easier, especially if it's shorter. It'll be easier to tie it first. So you'll just tie at the back there, and you can move the knot down to the bottom. And on this last one, on my previous one, I tied it into a double knot. But that's only optional. You don't have to tie a double knot. Single knot is fine. Okay, so there we go. So now we're going to attach our cherries onto the bottom. So you'll take these tail ends, if you've got 2 like me, or 1, take this tail end, thread that needle. A little bit tricky with these 2 tail ends. There we go, got them through. And then you'll take your first little ball. Now how I do this is I go down one side. So I don't go right down to the bottom with this one. I just go down one side, pull that through to the top, and then I go across. So go in and across. So you just want to secure this in there. So I go across to, a few stitches across, and then I come back up into the where I've gone into, so right up to the top of my cherry ball here. So this is why you need a sharper darning needle to get through all of this. And then what I do to finish that off is I go all the way down and out the bottom. Let's get that all the way through. So it can be a little bit tricky getting that through all your stuffing. Get that through. And sorry, once again, my hands are a little bit sweaty, so it's a little bit more tricky today. And then if you've misshapen your cherry at all, you can just shape that back into the shape you want, and then you can snip off your excess at the bottom. Okay, and if you can see the green, see how you can see that little piece of green sticking through, just take the end of your needle and poke that back in. Okay, so you'll repeat the process for the other cherry, and I'll see you once I've done mine, and then we'll finish off by making the necktie. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so there's our little cherries with leaves. And now all that's left is to create the necktie that will just tie this onto your cat's neck. So it's just a simple chain, and you'll just tie it at the back of their neck. Okay, either with a little knot or a bow. Okay, so you'll work out the length that you need. So if you've got the ballpark figure of your cat's neck circumference, then you'll work from there. So we're going to just make it once again a slip onto your hook, and you're going to go ahead and chain to the length that you need for your cat's neck circumference plus how you want to attach it. So I like to tie a bow, so I like to allow it, quite a bit extra. So what you'll probably need to do is at least double your cat's neck circumference in the length of your chain. So last time I chained 110 chain, so I'm going to chain about the same, and that gives me, with this hook size and this yarn, it gives me at least double Melba's neck circumference. So her neck circumference is around 24 centimeters. I want to get to at least sort of 50 centimeters in the length of my chain. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and you do the same, and see you shortly. Okay, so I've got the length of chain that I want there, and it's just over 50 centimeters. And I'm just going to yarn over and pull through and tie off. Just leave a little bit of a tail. Okay, so what you want to do now, before you make, if you're making little tassels at the end, you want to attach it to your little cherry section. So just thread your needle again with one of the ends. And again, this is always a little bit tricky because I've got two ends and a quite small-eyed needle. There we go. So into the back here, you're just going to feed your chain underneath that little tie that you've made there. And I should have probably said, don't tie that too tightly. Oops, I've gone under a piece of yarn there. There we go. Oops, I'm just going to have to, excuse me, I'm just going to have to snip that off and re-thread my needle. Oh, actually I don't need to thread my needle again. There we go. So you just pull that through. And if you want to make some little tassels, what I do is I just use, so some of my little offcuts, what I do, so these are just the little offcuts that I've used. You can just, snip each of these ends and just have two strands hanging down. But what I do is I just sort of improvise these to make these like little mini tassels. Let's just show you. On my last one, see, just like these sort of little mini tassels. You can, if you know how to make, actual tassels, you can you can go ahead and make just little ones if you want to on the end. I'm not going to run through that here, but what I do is I just take these little offcuts and I put them into just right at the end there of my chain where the knot is, and I just pull this through, and then so I've got a couple of strands there, and let's do, how many strands have I got? Yeah, let's just do very small ones this time. So then you can do, you can add more strands if you want to, and then I just tie a piece around the top of the strands, so it looks like a little tassel, and it uses up my tail ends that I've cut off. So that's kind of cool too. So I'll just do a double knot there just to secure that. And I'll take my needle again, and see when you tie these, you'll have one that's sort of sticking out, so you'll just thread your needle with that one, and oh, if I can, actually I need to put my needle through first because it's such a short piece. So you'll just thread your needle underneath that strand that you've just tied the double knot in, and you'll pull that piece that's sticking out into the main part of the little mini tassel. Oops. I'll get that in there. It's so hard working with heat and sweaty hands. There we go. So I'll pull that through. And then I'm just going to give my tassel a little haircut to the shortest strand that I've got there. And there's my little improvised tassel. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off the other one as well. I've got some extra strands there that I'll use, and I'll be right back and we'll finish off together. Okay, so there's my little cherry necktie finished. I've got my little tassels on the end, and it's all done. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Like I said at the beginning, it's just super cute. It looks so cute on Melba. It's like a little bow tie with cherries hanging off it. So I love it. So I hope you enjoyed it too. And I'd love to see photos of your cat wearing his or her cherry necktie. So if you have some time, please send those along to catventurous.community@gmail.com, or you can tag us on social media at catventurous.crochet. So once again, thanks very much for being here, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. Good girl. Thanks, Melba.